Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this week's video. In this week's video we're just going to build out a little simple spawner. It is little and it is simple. It's more tailored towards really small games that don't have to spawn many assets at a time or many enemies at a time. For large scale projects or things with like lots of stuff going on, it could be quite expensive and it probably won't be right for you. Essentially, build it out. If you start to experience a bit of lag or a bit of lag when the characters are spawning, it's probably not meant for you. It is quite a small scale thing. I'll move into what to do in some of the larger scale things in a future video. But here's a quick preview of what we're going to do. Okay, so this is what we're going to make today. So basically, it's just a little spawner. So as you can see there, a monster or an enemy is just spawned in. And then after a few seconds they start to chase us. And really all I want to do is I just want to focus on the spawning and then sort of picking the locations for the spawn. So as you can see, they're not spawning in the same place every time. Another one's just spawned in the corner there, another one's just spawned here. And if we watch there, another one's just spawned just over in the corner. And essentially I've got a set number of sort of characters that are going to spawn. So at the moment we've got, what, 6, 7, 8, 9 is just spawned over in the corner, and then it should stop at 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just a really basic, simple spawner. It's ideal for really small games. If this was to be done on more of a larger scale, I would definitely recommend pre-spawning all your enemies at the beginning and then moving them rather than spawning them to where they need to be. But I can cover that in another video. Today let's just focus on a really basic spawner. Let's get into it. Just before we jump straight in and get this built out, I just want to say thank you. I've received my first Patreon subscriber. I will list them at the end of the video. Thank you very much for your support. It's greatly appreciated. Okay, so I've just got a fresh project here starting up. It's completely fresh. It's just opened this minute. It might have just caught that on the edge of the video. I may have edited that out. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change a few things just to make this a bit easier. So I've gone to editor preferences and I'm going to change the asset editor location to the main window. And this just allows things that I open to open on this screen instead of in a new window everywhere else. Right, okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time dwelling on things. I'm going to take some previous feedback into consideration. If there's any point of this video that I don't cover in enough detail for you, leave a comment down below. I'll either message you personally or if I need to, I'll make another video about that thing. But yeah, let's crack onto it. So we're making a spawner. So what we're going to do is we're going to need I've set up a first person template, so that comes with just a set of arms and a first person sort of character. We're going to need a third person character to use. So in the marketplace, if anything like me and you've been playing with Unreal for a while, you've probably collected a few characters. If you haven't, one of them that is free is a military style mannequin. I'm going to pick this one because I've used it. So if you type in military style mannequin in the marketplace, you should find it. It's free. You can then add that to your project. I've called this one spawner tutorial. That'll add pretty quickly. It's only 80 megabytes, so it wouldn't take much time at all to download. Once you've got that in, that's great. You'll see here that in the ODS mannequin, third person BP and blueprint BP, in blueprints you've got a BP for the male version and the female version. I'm going to use the female because the name's distinctive and it's just going to stick out in the menus. But in the viewport you can see that it's just a third person character with an idle animation and some movement animations. Realistically, we don't really need to do much to this character, but we will later just to get it to follow us around. But for now, I'm just going to go back to the main contents folder and I'm going to right click and I'm going to start creating the spawner. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to open up a blueprint class. I'm going to use an actor because then we can spawn it or place it in the world. I'm going to call this BP_spawner. I'm going to open that up. We don't really need to do anything in the viewport, but in the event graph, what we're going to do is I'm going to delete everything except event begin player. Now, what I want to do is I want my spawner to spawn an actor every number of seconds, or every time I tell it to, for example. Now, I'm going to do mine on a timer. I'm going to say event timer. And essentially what this does is when this is triggered, when this timer is triggered, every whatever number of time you set here, every 5 seconds, loop in if you want to loop or not, it's going to trigger this event. Now this event we're going to use to spawn our character. Now there are some other settings where you can have an initial delay or whatever you want. I'm just going to say every 5 seconds spawn a character, and I want that to loop. Now to cancel this, what you can do is you can promote this to a variable and set the name of this to spawn timer. And then what that'll allow you to do is it'll allow you to access a feature called clear and invalidate. And basically that's just stop this and reset. We'll come to that in a minute when we count up how many actors that we've spawned. So let's first off let's do the spawn actor. So from the event, you want to do a custom event, and I'm just going to put spawn monster. Spawn monster. Now from that we want to not drag it across the blueprint. We're going to do spawn actor from class. We're going to select the class. So for me, I'm just going to type in female because I knew that that's the only female thing in this in this in this project. That was the word I was looking for, project. And essentially that's going to spawn, but before it can do that, it needs to know where to put it. Now there's a couple of choices here. You can set up a nav mesh bounds, and you can get it just to pick a random place in the area to spawn. That could be one option. Or we can set up a few spawn points, and we can have it pick one at random and spawn there. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the random one, the completely random. There's no sort of set spawn points, and that's quite simple. So what we can do is get reachable point in radius. So you can see there in navigation, get random reachable point in radius. This requires an origin. Now this one we can set as get actor location, because essentially what we're going to do is we're going to place this spawner in the world, and I'm going to place it in the center of my world. So for me that's a perfect origin, because then I'm going to say I want to use a radius around that. Now for me to pick a radius, what I'm going to do, I shouldn't have pressed compile then, it's just habit, but that's just created some errors. Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this spawner in the world like that, try and place it in the center, but I am going to just square this up and put 0, 0. I'm going to raise it up just a tiny bit so it's not in the floor. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to select that spawner, and I'm just going to move it down until I get sort of like near the edge of my map. So, and I'm going to look now at the location. So that's minus 2000. If I go up, I've got minus, okay. So this sort of area is not centered. So that's 1,500-ish. And from the left, we've got, 1,800. And to the right, we've got 1,700. So if I set these to 0 and 0 again, I now know if I put a radius of 1,500, I'm probably going to be safe. So in my spawner, I'm going to set a radius of 1,500. I don't really need nav data or a filter class. And then that's going to give me a random location. So it's going to pick this spawner's location, which is here, and then it's going to pick a random place in that radius to spawn my monster or my character. But this requires a transform, so you can just drag straight in and do that, and that'll convert it to a transform, and I think it just zeros the other values. Or you can type in make transform, and essentially that'll take in the location. You can here set up the rotation. I'm just going to leave mine as 0 because I'm not that bothered. And scale is going to be 111. And then we can plug that into that. And that's one way to do it. But this isn't going to work exactly just yet because this get random reachable points in radius requires a nav mesh bounds. So if you go back to your main map and go to your volumes on the left, and you'll see nav mesh bounds volume. If you drag that in, I put mine typically in the center. I'm just going to drop that down a little bit just so then the bottom box disappears. I'm going to press R and I'm going to make this basically as big as my area can be. There we go. If it goes out of the walls, it doesn't really matter because it'll only go to where it's reachable anywhere, so don't worry about overlapping things. I'm gonna move that in a little bit. There you go. And one way to figure out where it's going to pick from, if you press the P key on your keyboard, one sec, I've just unselected it for some reason. My mouse scroll wheel's just broken as well, so when I scroll down it actually scrolls back up, which is weird. If you press the P key, don't fail me now, there we go. If you press the P key, everything that's lit up green is an area which it deems as reachable. Now, I'm not too sure why the top of this cube has been selected, so I could move this around just a little bit. I tell you what, I'm actually going to leave that because it's never going to go on top of this cube anywhere. If you want me to focus on a little bit more about nav mesh bounds and why it picks loads of weird locations like this, or why the box around this is so big, I can do, but this is not the sort of point of this video. But this should be fine. So you can see this whole green area is now selected. This will allow this spawner now to see that area, and it'll pick a random place within it. Set that as a location, and that's going to do that every 5 seconds. Now, we've not told this to stop, but if we give this a quick play, let's just see what happens. Have I adjusted the floor here or something? I think I might have moved the floor by accident. Okay, so we've got a character that spawned, and we've got another one that spawned there. We've got another one that spawned over there. Wow, and another one that's just spawned right in front of us. So that's working. But that's going to continue to spawn characters forever. So I'm just going to change this timer now to 1 second, just so that we don't have to wait too long to see if it's working. 1, 1, 1. Okay, so we're getting quite a few of these, and it's gonna become quite weird when there's 100 of them. So we really need a way to limit it. So this is really simple as well. So we're just going to add a variable, and I'm just going to put spawn count. I'm going to set this to an integer. I'm going to drag that over here, and I'm going to get it. I'm going to press ++. I'm going to increase it in. Now this, if you didn't know, the increment is, well, as that tooltip explains there, adds 1 to the specific value and then sets it. So whatever this is, which is going to be 0 because it's a fresh integer, it's going to be 0. It's going to add 1 to it and then set that as 1, so that it saves you having to do a plus and then a set. It does it all in one go for you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to check. I keep typing if it's greater than or equal to, let's say 10. If this is true, then what we're going to do is we're going to use our timer from earlier. Get it? And we're going to say let's clear and invalidate. So now what's going to happen is it's going to, every second, it's going to spawn one of these characters. It's going to count up every time it does. And once it becomes greater than or equal to 10, it's going to clear that timer. That timer is going to stop. So we press play. So this is going to be a bit, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, right. Tell you what, I should have waited till it stops. So what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there you go, we've got 10 there. Just have a quick look around, make sure there's no extras. Okay, so there's no extras there. There's exactly 10. So that's buzzing. That works as expected. Now, obviously that's just picking a random location on the map. What if we want it to have specific spawn points? And so let's say, like, for example, Call of Duty. There might be 5 or 6 different spawn points on the map, and I want it to pick a random one. Now, you could be a bit smarter about it, and you could set something up that checks if there's an enemy near that spawn point and disables it. If not, but that's getting into something else, so we're not going to cover that. But let's set up another variable, and let's set it to spawn locations. And let's change the type by clicking this little button here, and let's search for target point. So you can see here, target point, and we want an object reference. And if you right click on this little icon, it'll change it to an array. Alternatively, you can go up to the variable type at the top and change it to an array here. So we're going to have these spawn locations. I'm going to set this to instance editable and expose on spawn, and you'll see why in just a minute. Oh, that's complaining. I have a habit of just pressing compile, and if this doesn't have a location, it always complains. So now we have the spawn location sort of array. We're going to drag that in, and we're going to get it. And then from the array, there's actually a random item utility. So random item array. So this just gets a random location from this. And then what we can do is get actor transform would work. And you can plug that straight in. Alternatively, you can get the actor's location and make the transform again if you want to be, if you want to change things. But I'm going to pick transform, and I'll show you why, because we're actually going to set the spawn locations up to point in a specific direction so our characters don't spawn facing the wall. So if you press compile, this will be okay. However, when it goes to load a spawn location, it'll realize that it's 0 and it's empty. So to fill this up, what we actually need to do is go back to the map. And I'm just going to get into a better perspective here, and I'm going to press P on the keyboard and just get rid of that nav mesh. By the way, when I say get rid of, I mean I'm just deactivating the visual of it. By pressing P, you're only activating and deactivating the visual that represents where it covers. It's still there. We've just turned the green bit off. Okay, so if you look now and find your spawner in the world, in your world outliner, if you see now, you've got spawn locations on the right, and I want to have each corner and maybe 2 in the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want 6 locations, and you can see here that it wants something to populate these 6 locations. Now, because we made an array of target locations, that's exactly what we need. So if we search in the classes on the place actors for target, you'll see target point. Now, if you drag one of these into the world, and I'll tell you what, press F and get focused on it. I'm just going to drag it up till it's maybe about 250, so it's not in the floor. And it's typically, if I can see it, there we go. If you deselect it, it's hidden under the arrow. It's got a little green. It's got a blue arrow pointing off it, and this is sort of like the forward direction of it. So this is the way that your character is going to face once it spawns. So if you're happy with it facing into the world, which I am, I'm going to keep that. This will be our first location. So now I'm just going to zoom out to make it a bit easier for me to see. I'm going to select that target location, and holding Alt on the keyboard, I'm just going to drag. Now if you hold Alt, what it does is it duplicates as you move. So you can see I've still got one over here. And I've got 1 here now. So again, because I duplicated it, it's going to be facing forward, which I'm happy with. I'm also going to drag another one out to be here in the middle, and I'm going to drag another to be next to it here, and they're both facing forward. So at this point now, I'm going to have this one face forward, but I'm going to have this one face... Actually, I'm going to leave it as forward for now. I'm going to press Alt again, and I'm going to drag down, and I'm going to move into this bottom corner. But this time I'm actually going to rotate, so I'm going to press E and do a full 180 degrees. I'm going to press W again, and I'm going to hold Alt, and I'm going to duplicate it one more time. So now in each of the corners and 2 in the middle, I should have 6 spawn points. Or target points, should I say. So now in your world outliner again, if you want to select your BP spawner, and then you can just link these up. So if you press the first location, 0 is none, pick target point, and then you just go down and select each one. There you go. So now you've got 6 items in your spawner. So now when it goes to look for a spawn location, it's going to pick one of these at random. It's going to get its transform, and it's going to spawn a character there. So if we now press compile and play, we should only get characters spawning in them locations. So you can see now that they'll spawn. Now obviously, like I said earlier, there's nothing to prevent the random being not random at all. And let's say out of the 6, it always picks 6. Now that's going to be really unlucky or lucky, depending on the way you see it. But that's going to pick... so you can see there 3 of them have spawned all in the same location there. 2 there, 2 there, and 2 there. But out of the 10 that it were going to spawn, we were going to have some duplication. But if 6 of them spawn there and then the rest dotted around, that'd be better. But that's how you can do that. Now, that's really your basic spawner. You can set up other things. You could have... I've got mine being started by event begin player. You could... You could set it up where your character... You could set it up where it spawns from your character, or your character is the reason that it triggers. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just give an example of that. It's going to be the worst example ever, but it's going to be an example. Instead of event begin player, if we set up a custom event here and call it start spawner. Really now what we need to do is just get a reference to this BP spawner anywhere else. Let's say you've got a game manager, and when you get to 10 points, you might want to tap into this BP spawner and change the spawn time to from every 5 seconds to every 2 seconds to make it harder. Or you might want to spawn a different character depending on what level your character's on. You're going to need to get into this somehow. But for me, I'm going to keep it really simple in this example and just trigger this start spawner from my character. So this isn't my character, this is actually the enemy. So let's just go back to content, first person BP, blueprints, and first person character. This is my character now. So what I can do is, let's just do, I think event begin plays up at the top. Yep. This is all motion control stuff. I don't really want to use that. So on my event begin play, I'm going to get actor of class. Not get all our actors, just get an actor of class. And I'm going to look for BP spawner. I'm going to then promote this to a variable and call this spawner ref. So you can see here now I've got a reference to my spawner in my world. So now I can just set up something really weird. I might go to overrides and I might say on jump. So every time I jump, I want to... Whoop, what am I doing? I want to get my spawner reference, get a spawner ref. Now, because this reference is essentially this entire spawner, if I drag off this now and say start, you got spawner there. And what this is going to do, this is going to actually trigger that. So I'm going to press compile, I'm going to hit play. And now, if this works, nothing should spawn at all. But then the minute I jump, I should have, there you go. So now I've just started the spawner. Obviously that's very basic. You could have it as, let's say, I'm not advising this is the way you do this, but for example, let's just go level. And let's set this to an integer. Let's drag this in. And let's just say if it's greater than or equal to 5. A branch to see if it's true. If that becomes true, start the spawner, and you could have this on. Please don't put this on a tick, but for example, every frame it's checking when this character gets to level 5, it's going to start this spawner, which might start spawning sort of like enemies all the time, or something like that. So using that reference, you can tap into this spawner and spawn whatever you want. You could also say, let's promote this class to a variable, and let's just say monster class. Compile that. This has been set to the female, but you could also say from the spawner, you could set monster class depending on the level. So you could do, this is just bonus, by the way. At this point, I'm kind of ranting on here a little bit. I kind of like doing this. This is my brain all over the place. But depending on the level, you could have, one sec, return value in there. You can see here now, if I type in third person character, you can have the male spawn on level 0, and you can have the female spawn on level 1. So essentially this level is going to increase, and you can add more pins, and you can have like I don't know, a skeleton on that one, and then on this one you could have a wizard, and then on the next one you could have like a big monster boss type thing. And as the levels progress, the class of which spawn or monster that you're spawning is changing. Obviously you'd need to do a lot of back end on that. At this point I'm just rambling on. I'm going to leave it there. You've got a basic spawner. Like I said, it's basic. I wouldn't do this on a large scale map. I'd be more inclined to spawn all my enemies at the beginning during a loading screen or something like that, and have them spawned in sort of like a hidden area, and then have the characters move into place, like instantly teleported into place when you want them instead. So instead of a spawner, you'd have like a mover type thing. That'd probably be more appropriate, because you do all the heavy work at the beginning of the level. Because spawning a character is a little bit expensive, but on a small game you won't notice it. But on a large game, like I said, you'll probably see, if you're spawning 10 enemies at once to like fall from the roof in a dungeon or something like that, your game would probably lag for a second or two while that spawns, and especially if you've got a dynamic character. Anyway, I'm getting into it. Thanks for watching. Again, thank you for my recent Patreon member. Greatly appreciated. Your name should be scrolling down the screen somewhere here. If this was helpful, please consider giving me a like, so I've got that feedback. If there's anything that you want me to sort of go into more detail on, leave a comment. Or if you just want to show your appreciation, leave a comment. And if you want to see more things like this, I post every Sunday. And to make sure you don't miss it, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to get a notification for when I post, hit the notification bell as well. There's some social links down below, such as Discord. I'm typically in Discord quite a lot. If you want to come and ask me a question in there, that's fine. And I do game quite a bit. I have got a Twitch down below. Granted, I have children, so I don't really get that much spare time to dedicate to streaming. But I do try when I can. But either way, they're down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.